I started playing chess all the way back in 2021, and when I was looking for an opening to play with the black side, I found this Alex Banzea video on the Caro-Kann defense. Since then, I've played the Caro-Kann 5,511 times. So in today's video, I'll be showing you guys everything that I've learnt about the Caro-Kann over the last 4 years. We'll look at 2 variations in today's video, so leave a comment below on what variations we should look at next. Before we do get into today's video though, if you guys enjoy the content on this channel and want to help support me, feel free to check out my coaching options on my new website. Coaching is certainly not necessary to becoming a great chess player. However, if you're not someone who has all the time in the world to spend training and studying, coaching will absolutely save you years of time trying to do everything yourself. You can use code FIRST at checkout to get 25% off your first lesson, or book 4 lessons in advance to get your 5th one completely free. But if you guys want an alternative free option, you guys can feel free to join my Discord where you can collaborate with higher rated players who can help you get to your next rating goal. But with all that being said, let's get right into today's video. Okay, so we have this game with the black pieces. We want to play the Caro-Kann, but to play the Caro-Kann, we need e4, which we have got. So most likely, we will not transpose out of the Caro-Kann. We need to play c6, and after e4, we play d5. Now, we're going to look at a couple of variations in this video. The advanced variation is by far the most popular choice from white. What I recommend at any level under 2000 ELO is this move c5, which seems a little bit counterintuitive. Because you are moving the same pawn twice. Taking is the top engine move. It is the best line, and this is why I probably don't recommend it to anyone over 2000 ELO, because your opponents will probably find this move 9 times out of 10, where they can now play f5 and try their best to hold on to all of their pawns in the center. The top engine line is to play e6 here, but I think that at a lower level, knight c6 is absolutely fine. Even if they do find f4, it can be a little bit tricky for them to hold on to all of their pieces. So now they're attacking my pawn in the center. If we were to take this straight away, we would lose the pawn right back. If we play this as well, something like e6, whilst we do attack 2 pieces at the same time, we do block in our bishop. There is also this interesting move of d4, which I am considering. d4 kicks the knight away, of course, and there's not really any move for white. If they play something like b5, we're going to play a6. So I think that maybe it's not the best move in the position, but d4 is certainly a very good choice here. I think d4 and e6 both good moves here. But taking more central control, forcing the knight back, or possibly off to the side of the board is going to be quite good here. If they play something like knight e4, which escapes the attack, we would just play knight takes, and here I think we just go for a6. The knight is not trapped, and we will probably not trap the knight at all in this game, but we've got 2 defenders on this pawn and 2 attackers, so we don't need to worry about it at all. And our opponent will go to a3 here, and now we've got a choice. Okay, do we want to snap up this pawn straight away? Usually I would say that maybe you want to wait and play something like bishop f5, but there is this f4 move that is just very good. So I think we do have to get a little bit greedy here and take the pawn straight away, just because it's kind of the nature of these openings where our opponent plays d takes c5 on move 4. We do need to kind of grab these pawns when we get the opportunity. So we've got queen e2 here, attacking our knights. We don't really have a move that develops whilst defending this knight. So I think our best bet is just to drop it back to a square that suits it more. And now we're prepared to play something like e5. e5 hitting the pawn. We've also got knight f3. We've also got bishop f5, lots and lots of options in the Caro here. This is a clever move, trying to, prevent us from playing e5 because of the pin. We do have this check though, picking up the pawn, which allows us to play e5 later because we're evading the pin. So we're hitting the king and the pawn here. And this bishop, I mean, it could come back with tempo, but we're just going to move our queen anyway. That was our whole plan. If they play something like c3, I'm just going to take, and this is much better for black than it is white. By the way, this is controlled a million times. I'm never worried about this checkmate. And I think already black must be better by a long shot here. So they have found what I think would be the best move here and bringing the bishop back, but we just take this free pawn and now castling long. A lot of players will do this around this level. They'll feel the game slipping away from them a little bit and they want to create some kind of imbalance. So they'll castle long, even though I think it just makes their position a whole lot worse here. We could play something like d5, but it doesn't actually open up our bishop as much right now because of the queen in the way. So a move like knight f6 is kind of standing out to me, although knight f6, maybe there is something like f4 to be worried about. I think just taking the center, keeping it simple, sticking to principles is usually the right way to go. Opening up the bishop later on, and knight f6 is now more than possible. And we're kind of rewarded because I don't think knight f3 is a fantastic move. It allows us to play bishop d6, defending our pawn, and we can play knight f6 on the following turn, and maybe even something like, I was going to say something like e4. So this is kind of a nothing move. I don't know what knight g5 is. We're not really threatening to capture here. So I'm going to play knight f6. Maybe the idea is to jump in here, but now I can just take. So I'm not worried about that at all. If knight e4, okay, that's an interesting move. So they're going straight in with their other knight now, trying to get it active. Targets are the bishop and the pawn. I could castle here. I could also play h6, which I think is a fine move. Yeah, I think h6. Let's get some pieces out of this position. We're already a pawn up, by the way. So even if our attack kind of comes to nothing, or doesn't get like the checkmate that we want it to, we are up the pawn. So, you know, everything is going to be successful in this game as long as we keep that pawn and don't convert into a drawn endgame. He has to move his knight back somewhere here. Here we can take this knight. We kind of have to if we don't want to lose a piece. And now we have the option of... No, we don't have the option of playing f5 just yet. No, we do. We can play f5 right now, defended by the bishop, just trying to kick this queen away from our position. We also do have the opportunity to play bishop e6. That's another move that I quite like. It comes with tempo. I think bishop e6 makes a lot of sense. Developing a piece, allowing another rook to get active in this position, all while coming with tempo. So he takes my bishop. I'll take back. This is a very good, you can see, one kind of tip that I like to teach beginners in chess is quite often the central pawns will point in the direction that you should be attacking. And in this case, the pawns are pointing towards the king because we have the open c file. You'll notice that in a lot of kind of chess positions, when one side has an open file or both sides have an open file, the pawns will point towards the direction that you need to play. For example, if this pawn was replaced on this square, the pawns would then point to the king's side because you've got the open file to work with on that side of the board. There are exceptions to that, of course, but it's a good general rule of thumb. So the king has moved over to b1. I think just, again, playing on this side of the board should be the way that we go. So let's play rook c8. There's also an argument to play something like b5, which would be completely valid as well. I'm not worried about this. I want to take, and if they're opening up their own king side, but now I think it's time maybe we get our king safe by castling. And we've still got this strong center, lots of good qualities about this position. They're trying to get a checkmating threat, but we've saved this move f5 that we saw so long ago. f5, and we could also threaten e4 after the move f5, especially, I mean, there might be the mistake of f3 allowing us to fork. Regardless, we're going to get a very, very good position here. And we might not even take this pawn at the end of the line. So for example, yeah, queen h4. Okay, we do also have to worry about some kind of sacrifices. There is a hook in this position. So let's say e4 takes. Is there anything to be worried about? Probably not. I think our king has plenty of space to run if they decide to try and get a draw. And we can defend with our queen with maybe rook c7 or queen d7. So I think e4, attacking the bishop, is more than fine. It's hope chess to assume that your opponent will take back. We're going to win a bishop, you're going to win a pawn. That is not an even trade. We are definitely better out of that. And yeah, this is what I was saying before. We don't necessarily have to take at the end of this line, and I think taking would be bad. I think all we do is play d3. And now we're kind of suffocating this position. The bishop has to move again. And maybe then we threaten something like queen d5, just threatening a checkmate of our own. Queen d5 is maybe a little bit short-sighted right now because of just b3. I'm trying to think of a way to kind of get into this position. Okay, let's say queen d5, b3 is then knight d4. If you take, I've got rook c2. It's very interesting. Here, b3, knight d4 takes rook c2. I think this must be winning. Yeah, I like this a lot. Okay, let's go queen d5. I think everything is winning because at the end of the day, we have queen d4 or like queen b5, depending on where we put the knight. Obviously, the idea is just to get our knight into here, by the way. But I think it's better to go d4 because if they don't accept it, we can sacrifice. And we're looking at a lot of mating opportunities here. So knight d4, let's get this exactly right. Knight d4 takes rook c2. I don't think we're in time with knight d4 here and takes, because there is bishop e3, and we don't really have a great spot to put our bishop then. So let's say knight d4 might not be the most accurate continuation, but I do like it. Knight d4, threatening to take. If they go here, this is checkmate. If takes, 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 and here, that would be checkmate. They've ignored the knight sack. Can we sacrifice the rook now? Rook takes, takes, takes. We're threatening all kinds of checkmates. I don't think they can stop this. Let's sacrifice the rook for this attack. The light squares are simply too weak, and we're going to break through. We've got enough pieces in the attack where the rook doesn't matter. We can also just replace the rook. Another piece that isn't taken. Are we going to get a... Oh my god. Are we going to get a triple sacrifice here? Might be quadruple. Can I take with the knight? If you take, I'm thinking I can check. If you take with the bishop, I take here. If you block with the bishop, I play check here, check here, check. It's looking very good. I think that I can take with the knight here. I don't think you also have to sacrifice the rook. I'm pretty sure you could just play rook c2, which might just be a little bit better. Let's play rook c2, and the queen has eyes for this b3 square, and we're going to finish off a very nice game with a win, taking on b3 and checkmating on b2. We'll have a look at this game as well to see if we could have played it any better. We did stray a little bit away from a traditional Caro-Kann as well. We've got two mates here. Doesn't really matter how we do it, we will get the win. So let's have a look at this game and see how well we did. Okay, so we're gonna go through this game together very, very slowly. By the way, I don't know what's wrong with chess.com today, but whenever I click the arrow, it does this, and we can go all the way over to this side of the screen. So I'm gonna have to tap the manual button on chess.com. So we played a Caro-Kann. Our opponent got us out of theory a little bit early. So for those that are wondering, the main line of this to play for an advantage for the white side should be d takes c. Because if knight c6, which is the natural move if you are used to playing the Botvinnik cars, you can actually play f4, and it's extremely, extremely difficult to hold on to this pawn. I know the engine is suggesting one thing, but I promise you this is, you're not going to get back this pawn. So let's say now you play e6, they play bishop e3, and now you're forced to play d4. So whilst you will win back this pawn after bishop f2 and takes, suddenly black has another weakness in the center that white is probably going to capitalize on. Very difficult to play these kind of positions. So if you do get into this position, you have to make some kind of concession. That concession is blocking the bishop in, and then let's say after they play bishop e3, now you have knight d7, and we're attacking two pawns at once. They have to kind of pick their poison. Which one do they want to drop off the board? They can play bishop b5, but then there are a whole lot of lines where you will eventually win back one of these pawns as black, but your bishop will be bad for quite a while. In this position, again, against players under 2000 elo, you don't have to worry about that, so knight c6 is a fine move, and my opponent proved that with knight c3, which is already a slight mistake. When you get natural-looking mistakes like this in games, quite often the way that you punish it isn't with some kind of crazy attack, it's just by a natural move that looks good. So in a lot of positions, that might be just developing a piece like bishop f5. In this position, bishop f5 isn't the greatest move because there's a pawn hanging, but you just have to play what looks like the natural move to make. You don't always have to look for that weird move. So d4, there's also e6, where we're just attacking two pawns at once and we would win a pawn back, but I thought d4 was a little bit more dynamic, forcing the knight to the edge of the board. Now a6 is the best move. We want to kick this knight away again, and we want to be able to get our queen out. We can't play queen a5 check right now because the knight is held by the bishop, so that wouldn't be a fork. So we play a6, forcing the knight to the a3 square. A knight on the edge of the board is generally a bad thing, and it is no different in this game. I did suggest that maybe bishop f5 wouldn't be the best move in this position because we want to take this pawn as fast as possible, but there is this knight b4 idea that I didn't quite look at. I think is this the reason? So if something like f4, we play e6, and maybe there is a knight b4 eventually at some point in this line. The knight actually serves a single purpose on this a3 square, which does prevent knight c2 check, but I assume that after you take, this is going to be bad news for white. So we went with knight takes e5, just simply winning back the pawn, and after queen e2, you can actually play queen a5 check and take the pawn as early as now to defend like this, but I thought knight c6 was also fine. And now my opponent comes with a weird looking bishop g5. There is actually a really good way to figure out what notation or what indicator this move has. So in this case, chess.com thinks it's a mistake, but in the actual game, you can't figure that out. The best way of figuring out what kind of indicator your move has, you just have to look for a couple of characteristics. So first of all, this doesn't attack anything, which immediately should give you a few warning signs in your head. This actually doesn't do anything. The sole purpose of this move is to stop me from playing e5. It's not a multi-purpose move, that's all it does. Second of all, it can easily be kicked away. h6 is the third top engine move here. And third of all, this is what I call a loose piece. It's a piece in the position that isn't defended by anything else. For example, black has none of these pieces. The kings are technically always loose pieces because if they are checked, they need to move. And in this position, the rooks are also loose because nothing defends them. But you're not really going to win any of these rooks in the current position. But white has a couple of loose pieces. White has the bishop, the king, it has this b2 pawn, and it also has this c5 pawn. So lots of loose pieces in the white position, and white is adding another one here with bishop g5. So if you look out for a couple of those characteristics in piece moves, you should be able to make a quick assessment on if it was a good move or not. So here we play the top engine move of queen a5 check, looking to pick up this pawn. Bishop d2 was the correct move. If something like c3, we would take, and we would be forking all of the pieces here, so this wouldn't be so good. There is not really any other way that you can do it. Maybe queen d2, but then we would take on c5 all the same. So bishop back to d2, and we take on c5. At this point, my opponent should be trying to cut their losses here. They should be trying to catch up on development. So something like knight f3, something like g3, bishop g2, and castling long, and just say, okay, I'm down a pawn. Let's try and get back into the game. What you shouldn't do is make things worse for yourself, because you'd be surprised at, the reason that people do this at this level is because they want to make some kind of imbalance. They're like, okay, I know that opposite side castling games usually lead to a lot of back and forth. It doesn't really matter how much material someone is up. There's going to be imbalances, and if there's imbalances, I'm still in a shot with this game. You'd be surprised how much at this level, if they were versing another 1000 ELO player, they are still well and truly in this game if they just get a couple of pieces out. So if you're in this kind of position as white, don't long castle. It's going to make things a lot harder for yourself. We play e5, which is a fine move, opening up the bishop, taking control of the center. I was a little worried about this move f4, which the engine isn't liking. It thinks that you just have g6, bishop g7, and you're adding a lot of attackers to this side of the board. But in this case, e5 is also a fine move. Our position is so advantageous that there are several good moves. Knight f3 is played by my opponents, trying to attack this pawn once more. We didn't really need to play bishop d6 to defend, but I did want to get this bishop out nonetheless, because I wanted to castle here eventually. So bishop d6 is fine. Engine is suggesting f6 here, not really entirely sure that's a move that I would suggest. I don't think Ben Feingold would either. But bishop d6, a natural move. Any of the natural developing moves in this position you'll find do just fine. Knight f6, the engine is liking knight f6. If bishop e6, engine likes that one too. So any of the natural developing moves that get your pieces out are going to be okay here. So we play bishop d6, and they play knight g5. Again, this is kind of one of those moves that we have to look at. Is knight g5, how do we figure out what the indicator is? So knight g5 is a good move. It's defended, so it's not a loose piece. That's very important. But what does this move actually do? Is it attacking anything? No, it's not really attacking anything that it's threatening to take. None of these pawns, it's not threatening to take any of these. The one thing that it does do is threatens to come around to e4 and trade off our dark squared bishop. That's all it threatens to do. But we can stop that with a natural developing move anyway, with knight f6. Sorry, I keep messing up the board. Knight f6 is a natural developing move that stops the knight from jumping in here, and we could just trade down material. So this is a good move. They bring in their knight with knight c4. We can kick this knight away. Trying to trade off pieces is going to be good when we're up material, especially when that material is on the side of the board that we don't plan on playing. So these two pieces, we're very happy to liquidate these because they're not ever going to be a part of our potential attack because they're too far away. So we're just getting rid of their attackers on our king, and trading them for defenders of our king because we still have all of this firepower over this side of the board. So they reroute their knight, we take, they take. I was thinking of f5 here, which would have been a fine move as well. Let's say they go back to f3 here. We could probably just castle here and be absolutely fine. And there would be no problems. Let's say castles, for example. Ooh, castles, b4 apparently is very good. And, oh, okay, our queen is tied to our bishop. So we would lose our bishop in this case. If we were to take here, there would be queen takes b4, queen takes b4, and what is the move? Queen d5 check picks up the bishop. Okay, I missed that. So you don't want to play castles in that position, but we didn't end up going for it. We went for bishop e6, attacking the knight with pressure. I was kind of thinking, okay, do I get tempo with a move like f5, or do I get tempo whilst developing a piece? And my mind immediately went towards developing a piece because it also allows the rook to get active on the c8 square. So they play bishop take, or knight takes d6 check, queen takes d6, and they play king b1, which I don't hate this move at all. It's a natural move that kind of gets the king a little bit more out of danger. It gets the king off the open file, which makes a lot of sense. And I immediately go and try and get my rook into the game. Engine is saying inaccuracy, but when you're up this, this kind of evaluation, it doesn't matter a whole lot. And my opponent makes another mistake here of c3. The reason that c3 is a mistake is because it opens up the diagonal here and it doesn't really threaten anything. So it's a little bit of hope chess, of course. They're hoping that we do this. They get an active bishop, for example. If we take here, they want to take here. This would be a free rook, unfortunately. So the idea wouldn't quite have worked anyway. But I think this was the idea. This is what my opponent was hoping for. And they were hoping that, if I move my queen back here, the evaluation is quite nice to white in this position. They haven't fixed all of their problems yet, but they're making good progress. So I think that's what they were hoping with c3. We didn't take there anyway, and we ended up just castling, getting the king active, and now we can kind of spring forward some kind of attack and really go after this white king. So they play bishop d3. We have to stop this checkmating attack somehow. There's g6 that we can do, although this allows bishop h6. So I think that f5 is definitely the natural move here. Just kicking the queen away, getting this diagonal very safe because we've got a light square defender of this f5 square and the rook defending this pawn as well. So they move their queen up to h4. We play e5. I was kind of half considering, and I think it was on this move, the move bishop takes h6. So you have to kind of wonder in this position, okay, this does look a little bit scary because there is the potential of some sort of perpetual check. For example, if we were to take here, this is a draw. Very, very instructive, and this is what I was talking about in the game, because even though they don't have all the material in the world, our king doesn't have any space. You've always got to be very, very careful when you have these hooks to not blunder something like that. Because even though you might think, okay, let's go back one move just to demonstrate this. Even though you might think, okay, they've taken my pawn, I have to take back their piece, they can actually get draws in a lot of cases despite not having any attackers aside from the queen. But in this case, I was very aware that I could just play this. If they were to take like this, I would take here and there would be space for my king to run to the other side of the board, and this would not be a problem anymore. So they play bishop e2, they don't really test us with that, and now d3 is the correct move here, and we've got so much control over the light squares, and white doesn't really have an attack. Not only are they down a tempo because of this d3 move hitting their bishop, they don't have an attack here either, and they don't really have the opportunity to play bishop takes h6. So we can continue. Bishop h5, I think, is probably the best move in the position. And we have queen d5. See, this is super interesting because I feel like this is an unintuitive attack to kind of find. But even if you don't find... Okay, so they play b3, stopping our checkmating attack. Even if you don't find a move like knight d4, which we found in the game, there are still so many other ways to kind of continue this attack. I mean, I think that knight a5 is a very intuitive way to play. If they play something like knight c4, now we can take on c4. That's intuitive to find as well. It's a desperado. Even if you see that, I think that something like b5 is probably a decent way to continue this game. So if you do get into this position, you don't need to find the crazy moves like knight d4, which is a brilliant move. If they take this, we're going to play rook c2, threatening queen takes and checkmate. If they play something like this, we could take on d2. We could also take on a2, which is another brilliant move. If they take here, we get checkmate. So lots of attacking prospects, but again, you don't need to find the best move. You can play something like rook c8, we're completely winning still. But if they play something like this, stopping our queen from getting in, again, there is probably something like this. There's queen a5 as well, threatening checkmate. There's plenty of moves that you can kind of continue with. So they don't take, they end up playing, sorry, let me not mess up the board. They don't take, they play c4. And we get brilliant move number 2, rook takes c4. Again, though, you don't need to find these crazy moves. You could bring your queen back, you're completely winning. I think the only move that doesn't sacrifice a piece is a queen move, just getting out of the way. That would blunder the queen. But rook c4, I think, is a natural move anyway, because the light squares are so weak. If you've made it up to this point, you've probably are going to find rook takes c4. So rook takes c4. They miss it again. I was considering rook takes here. I thought that this was an interesting move, still winning. I thought that this was maybe a little bit too complicated with knight takes because they don't have to take here. You know, they can play something like queen f2 and they can come back and try to defend this. If knight takes, they've got defense of this f7 square now, which is kind of annoying. So I didn't really like that line. And instead I thought, okay, just sacrificing the knight here with knight takes b3. And after they play a takes b3, now we can play rook c2, and this is going to be checkmate. It's all over, there's nothing they can do about it. And we do end up getting the win in this position. Bishop b4, queen takes b3, and queen b2, checkmate. So with all that being said, let's jump straight into another game with the Caro-Kann and try to show off a different kind of variation. Just before we continue, if you guys prefer a more hands-on approach and want to learn the Caro-Kann in a more interactive way, you might be interested in the sponsor of today's video, ChessMind.ai. ChessMind.ai. ChessMind.ai is a next-generation AI-powered chess improvement platform who also happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Not only does ChessMind have completely free puzzles, but they also have a wide range of courses you can select from for less than $5 per month. All of the courses are handcrafted by Chilean Grandmaster Mauricio Flores and are designed to make you a master of any opening variation in around an hour. They perfectly balance top quality theory with ease of learning to take the boring out of any study. Once you've completed these opening courses, you can either play puzzles deriving from said opening, or dive into their AI integrations which quiz your knowledge on what you just learned. The AI acts as a replacement for a coach, asking you to find characteristics of certain positions and explain the advantages and disadvantages. You can check out ChessMind.ai with my link in the description, where you can get 30% off your subscription. Okay, so we've got another game as black here. We're gonna hope for a different variation than the one we looked at in the Caro-Kann. Even if we do have to look at the same variation, there are a lot of different ways that white can try to play against the advanced variations, so it's not a problem. We'll probably include a couple anyway. And we get the Hillbilly Attack, which is a weirdly popular opening. I think the reason it's popular is this is people playing against the Caro-Kann that don't know theory. I don't think people are actually playing it because they think theoretically the Hillbilly Attack is a good option, but it's nice to know what to play. So against the Hillbilly, they'll usually play bishop b5, although they can also play bishop b3. Knight c6 is fine, but bishop d7 is a little bit better because this is going to be our bad bishop. We'll put the pawn on e6, and suddenly we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 light squared pawns and only 3 dark square pawns, meaning that the light squared bishop is our bad bishop. Bishop d3, already a weird move. This stops them from ever having full central control and also gives us a move. So we can develop to f6 with our knights, and the game goes on. So now we're kind of out of theory because our opponent played a weird move, but it's still nice to know the general direction that we direct the game into. So I'm not entirely convinced that we should be playing knight c6, although I don't really see another path. Knight c6, the bishop is blocked out, but I think we should probably be going for knight c6 and bishop g4, moving the bishop again. The bishop doesn't really belong on this d7 square. So knight c6 makes the most sense. This pawn is defended very importantly, and now we can play bishop g4. So we have moved the bishop twice, which is generally something we want to avoid, but considering our opponents moved the bishop how many times? Let me just count really quickly. 1, 2, and 3. I think us moving the bishop twice is justified. They've castled now, so we'll continue with our plan of putting all of our pawns on the light squares. And the next step in this plan will be to develop the bishop. Usually when you develop this dark squared bishop, you have to consider where their bishop's going to go. So if the pawn was already on d4, you would probably consider bishop e7 to anticipate this pin. But considering the bishop cannot immediately go to g5, I'm going to plant my bishop on d6, because he has to strike with this move d4 first, which already kind of causes some problems, because there's no pawn on c3 defending it. So if d4 takes, there is still a queen defending this pawn, so the knight can't take it just yet, but maybe that'll change over the course of the next couple of moves. We'll see. Next goal, though, is to castle. In these kind of structures in the Caro-Kann, this happens a lot in the exchange variation as well. It's very important to understand which side of the board we should be playing on. And in any chess position, this just doesn't just go for the Caro-Kann. The pawns will typically point you in the direction of the side of the board you should be playing on. So in this case, we're pointed towards the open file, and that's usually how it goes. You should be playing on the side of the board you have the open file where you can play. So in this case, a lot of our players going to revolve around this side of the board. They've played knight g5. We are kind of forced to take here. We don't really want to go back to f5 and lose a tempo, so we're just going to take here. And yeah, they've played queen e2. Now I think is probably a good time to just castle. They can never play d4 now, which is kind of a problem because we're just going to take it with our knights. But let's get our king to safety really quickly. There's no immediate danger on our king. They've got no bishop that is eyeing down our king, so we can safely castle there. And maybe our next move will be something like h6, rook ac8. Something that's really important to go for in these kind of structures of the Caro-Kann is this advancement of a6 and b5 ends up, taking that kind of space and allowing pieces to kind of hop into this c4 square primarily through a5 is going to be very powerful. I think right now we can probably immediately go for rook c8. There is also a loose pawn. I love to teach people about loose pawns. It is so effective in winning chess games in a very, very simple manner. This pawn on c2 is a loose pawn. We can count all the loose pawns in the position or loose pieces. This piece is loose because there is nothing defending it. This pawn is loose, this pawn is loose, and that is about it. The kings are also technically loose, and I guess this rook is a little bit undefended, but it's very difficult to win that rook. But it's very important to always identify which pieces are loose because they are the primary targets in any position. Now, how do we continue? If we play and try to play on this loose piece over here by maybe sacrificing a piece and then checking here, we would have to set that up with h5, and an obvious move is maybe just to play d3 and defend this knight, so I'm not convinced that targeting this piece is too important. So I think just playing rook c8 is going to be a good move. There was also knight b4, which I was considering, but I think just queen d1, and they're a little bit out of the woods there, so I'm not too convinced about that. They're sacrificing a piece. This doesn't do anything. We'll take. Yeah, they're just not winning anything here. Everything is defended in my position. They've not got enough pieces. I mean, they can hop in and take this if they want to, but then they lose a queen because of this discovery. We're just way too active for white to be playing like this. And I suppose this will just happen at this kind of level where the more solid and slow and principled you play, your opponents will resort to things like this. They will think, okay, my position is fine. I don't think I'm winning though. Let's do something that can maybe result in me winning. And they'll always go for these imbalances. They might opposite side castle. And in a lot of cases, it'll just be them making a mistake and you picking up the pieces. And I think that's what's so great about the exchange variation of the Caro-Kann and the Hillbilly Attack, where as long as you play slow, principled moves, you are going to get very good positions. And by the way, rook e8 is threatening to win the rook because it's defended by the knights, and there is no way to defend the rook on the other side. I'm actually not entirely sure how you deal with this. I guess you have to go back with your queen. But then again, rook e8 takes. I'm threatening back rank checkmate. Very difficult to stop if you go king e1. Maybe I go knight d4, and now I'm threatening a whole bunch of things. I think this position is completely lost. Yeah, and now we can go rook e8. There is no way to defend this rook and actually checkmate on the other side. You have to sacrifice your queen. And yeah, it's a very, very principled, very basic win against the Hillbilly Attack. Of course, you will not win in this manner every single game you play, but we might run through a simulation on what could have happened in this game had my opponents not sacrificed here. I'll show you guys what to do in the resulting position, in the game analysis, of course. But here they have to sacrifice their queen. If they don't, it'll be checkmate. And there's not too much else to say about this position. Okay, so they take our rook. We don't want to take back with the queen, because then they would take with the rook, takes with the rook, and they would play king f1. So let's just win the queen here with knight takes e8. And even though they have sacrificed the queen, this position is still extremely difficult for them to get anything out of. I'm probably just going to redevelop my knights to get it back into the game. Maybe I play knight d4. There's just a million ways for me to continue. I think knight d4 is probably the most active way to play. They can't play something like this because this is a fork. Still a lot of restraints in this position. We can go ahead and sacrifice our bishop for a pawn here to win that back. I wonder if that's the best move even. Yeah, let's go for this. Trading down, simplifying. We won't get a checkmate too soon in this position, but we are just going to win back the pawn here. Take with the queen. We've activated our queen as well. Now let's develop our knights. We are now threatening knight takes c2, and I don't think there's a way to stop that, actually. You can't play rook e2 at all. You just kind of have to allow us to take this pawn. Maybe the best you can do is to play rook b1 or something like this, but maybe I don't even take that pawn. Is there something better than I can be doing? I'm somewhat inclined to just continue developing here, so I really don't see why not. Let's continue developing. This pawn is not going anywhere. They can kick me away, sure, but I'm kind of convinced that maybe I have better things to do in this position. Maybe this pawn isn't worth too much. It's off to the side of the board. I want to be going for this king that's all the way over here. Very undefended, very vulnerable, no queen to defend it, and very weak dark squares that our knights can infiltrate on. So they have played this c3 move. I'm immediately thinking, let's first swing our queen in, get the queen more active onto this side of the board, and we could even maybe consider sacrificing a knight here. The only real move is to play king up. Now, can we sacrifice a knight? Takes. The idea is that I'm threatening knight g4. Takes. There is rook here. Then I have check. I like it a lot. Let's take here. Take with the queen. His king is completely exposed. I've also got a rook that I can bring in eventually as well. He hasn't taken. We can take this free rook now. Absolutely nothing stopping us from doing that. Maybe there was also a queen check that we could have thrown in. I don't know if this does anything there. It might, yeah, might not be the best move, but I think taking here is good. If they take, we can swing our rook into the game as well, which is very nice, and it should all lead to checkmate. So very, very nice conversion. Let's go rook e8 check. If they go here, checkmate. If they go here, checkmate. If they go there, we can probably just check, I'm thinking. Or do we want to go check? Check here, I don't know how to continue, so I'm going to play this queen check first. And now I'm going to play this check. Think this is the right kind of way to go. Check here. If they go back up, now we can bring in our rook. And we have checkmate on the next move. So now we're holding all the squares. If they went back to here, I think my move would have just been queen here, and checkmate as well, so it would have been mate no matter what. And now we can get checkmate. Let's have a look at that game, and more importantly, how we could have continued the game had they not sacrificed their piece. And look at if we missed anything as well. We played 89% accuracy, not really many mistakes in this game at all. Let's see. So, e4, c6, and we played the Hillbilly with d5. Takes, and check. You can see on the side here, there isn't too much of a difference between bishop d7 and knight c6. Bishop d7 slightly better. You would only know that if you know the theory, but if you want to play knight c6, it's also fine. Bishop d7, you should actually be playing e5 here, trying to get the bishop a little bit trapped over that side of the board, but I think knight f6 is a completely natural and okay continuation as well. Knight c3 is played, and then I go for knight c6, which is also fine. We're negative 1.5 here, so we should be a lot better. They play knight f3. The engine is screaming to play e5, but I don't play it. I play bishop g4, so still have a decent advantage, but could have played better with e5 there. They castle, e6. I do like this, just very, very simple. It's also a very systematic way of playing, so you don't really need to think a whole lot when you play like this. Let me also make the eval bar a little bit bigger. So after bishop e2, we can play bishop d6, and after knight g5, we do have to take here. If we go back, we're just giving them some tempo, allowing them time to play d4, and we're not really achieving much. Whereas if we take here and here, now we can go for something a little bit more proactive. We can play castles here. which we did do, and they can't play something like d4 because we snap it up in the center. So now they play rook e1, which is a very, very slow move, and we've kind of just got all the time in the world to do whatever we want. And that's what's so great about this position, is even though it may look like there's, you know, we haven't won any material, there are no clear advantages in this position, they're all positional ones. They haven't taken central control. Their knight is on a weird square, also undefended. Their knight is blocking in their c3 pawn, and they haven't developed their dark squared bishop, whereas we've developed all of our pieces. Our queen is on a very active square, king is safe, pawn structure is in fantastic shape, and we can even start to get our rooks into the game now. So that is why we do have this negative 1.5 advantage. We play rook c8, continuing that advantage, and then they do take here. So I think the best way to demonstrate what we should do is actually by playing this against an engine. So you can actually click on the analysis button here. Okay, so chess.com have changed their layout a little bit. At the bottom of the screen, there are 3 dots. I'll put a screenshot on screen. I'll get my editor to do it. And you can click practice versus computer. So we can take this position and practice it versus the computer. Let's click that button. We can also change the bot. So I don't really think I should be playing against the 3,200 rated bot. I think I should be playing someone a little bit easier, especially to demonstrate this with. Let's choose, I want a 1,600 rated bot. I think this is good. Is this from Costa Rica, the Isabel bot? Let's choose this bot. And now we can demonstrate how we should be playing this if our opponent makes normal moves. So I think for me, I would really consider knight b4. The idea is to, you know, take on this c2 pawn, but I think they can just go back with their queen, and eventually they're going to play a3. So I'm a little bit inclined to maybe not play that. And I think instead I should just play a6. I think, okay, the engine is telling me that a6 is a mistake. I don't really believe this. I think that what we're doing is okay. And I want to also play this move b5 now. I should maybe turn that off, or at least get rid of it so it's not so distracting. I don't think I can turn it off for myself, so I'll just have to see if my moves are good or not live. But now I want to go for b5. And we're expanding on this side of the board. So they're playing a4 here, trying to undermine this side of the board. We can go with b4 very, very early. b4 doesn't leave them with too many places to go with their knight. So I think b4 is just going to be the best move. We have to acknowledge that this pawn is under attack now. This pawn is also a little bit weak. We do maybe have this idea of b3, trying to break up the structure a little bit, but I think a5 is probably going to be the better move. a5, yeah, let's play, okay, so a5, what if they bring their queen in like this? I mean, the knight is just defending. Let's play a5. Okay, so they've played c3 now, and we're playing on this side of the board, and I immediately see just a straight up win in this position. We're playing a decently leveled bot. Straight up there is a win. This knight looks trapped. If I play b3, this knight has nowhere to go. We're just simply going to win a knight here. So b3, all we had to do was to play on the correct side of the board. Let's go ahead and take this knight now. We can even go ahead and simplify the position. Let's not walk into a fork though. Let's simplify the position. And we really don't need to play this position with too much care at all. Let's break open the side of the board. Takes. We could probably even play something like this if we really wanted to. Let's go ahead and play e5 there. e5. Let's take. There is just, you know, it gets a lot easier when you're up a piece. I don't have to explain my moves too much more because this game is well and truly over, but you can see just by playing on the correct side of the board and identifying what the correct side of the board was, our game plan became so much easier in this Caro-Kann game. That is not a free pawn. There's a rook over here. How do I want to play this, actually? Let's play queen c5. Okay, and they've locked off this side of the board. Let's bring our knight in. Let's also activate our queen. Can I take here? Let's go takes and just solidify these two passed pawns. This should all be good. Let's take pawn here with threatening checkmate. Let's go ahead and check, and we should be able to swing our rook around and stop this from promoting. Let's bring our knight down. Let's take. Gets very easy from here. We can convert this very easily. Let's not think about it too much. Let's take here. Let's go here. Let's bring the knight. Let's play e2. We'll make a queen, or should we do this? Let's make a queen, and now let's check, and this should just be a very easy game to convert. Let's check. They'll take. We'll take the queen and make another one. So very, very easy conversion here. We'll go ahead and even look at the analysis of this game. I know the conversion it's not too important. I think we'll skip all of the conversion of that game, but you can see that even if our opponent doesn't make that mistake of sacrificing here and thinking they have something, because we know how to play these kind of endgames or kind of middle games where we have this open file and white has this one, we know that we should be playing on this side of the board. So a6, the engine thinks it's an inaccuracy. I think that this is generally a good idea to be going for. d4, b5, and we just take space on this side of the board. a4 is a high-level move even. I don't expect your opponents to be finding something like this. I think they're much more likely to play something like bishop g5, to which we can just play this. Let's say they go back. Apparently g5 is even very good now. Let's say they take though, takes, and let's say rook ad1. Now we have something like knight a5, which is a very, very, very good move because we're getting into the position on this side of the board. If they play something like this, their knight falls. If they, shuffle around playing something like a3, we have knight c4, suddenly we're attacking this pawn. Let's say the rook goes back. You can see how this is a very depressing position already. You might even have moves like this, something like knight a3. And if they take, we're going to take like here, and there's weaknesses everywhere. So, playing on this side of the board, playing in the direction that our pawns point in is going to lead to very, very good positions in these kind of middle games. And just a few moves later, the opponent messed up and allowed b3, allowing us to win their knight completely. And with those two games concluding, I hope you all enjoyed the first episode of this potential series. Let me know in the comments below. The Caro-Kann is one of my favorite openings of all time, and it's one that I really love to teach to my students, so if there is a high enough demand for it, I'd love to continue. Let me know in the comments what variations you'd like to see in the next episode as well, but apart from that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.